Hello, thanks for joining me. Okay, just to be clear about this, neither Vladimir Putin nor Xi Jinping is actually president for life. What's happened is that in both Russia and China, the rules have been changed, and the old limits, which would have forced them to step down after a couple of terms, like American presidents do, have been lifted. In fact, of course, Vladimir Putin's been in charge in Russia since the end of 1999. But in 2008, after he'd been in power for the regulation two-term maximum, he stepped aside and his friend Dmitry Medvedev took over as president, while Putin took the supposedly lesser job of prime minister. But guess who continued to run things for the next 4 or 5 years? And when that time was over, Medvedev obediently stepped aside, and Putin got his old presidential job back. A neat dodge, but not exactly, shall we say, dignified. Much better to persuade the Russian people to vote for a whole raft of political and constitutional changes, tucked in among them the proposal that presidents, naming no names, should no longer face a two-term limit on the number of times they could be elected. That's now happened. So what about Xi Jinping in China? He became the top figure in the Chinese Communist Party in 2012 and president in 2013. Not elected by the people or anything difficult to control like that, of course, but chosen by a bunch of equally unelected figures at the top of the party. Before that, China had been ruled by a series of faceless characters who would run the country for 2 lots of 5 years at a time, as a threesome, and then obediently step down. But meekness and facelessness isn't Xi Jinping's style. He's piled on the power. He's even got his pretty average political writings designated Xi Jinping Thought on Socialism with Chinese Characteristics for a New Era, along the lines of Mao Zedong thought. Oh yes, and the boss of one Chinese region even ordered Christians to replace pictures of Jesus in their heavily controlled churches with, you'll be amazed to know, Xi Jinping's chubby features, which are not allowed to say resemble Winnie the Pooh's. So the leaders of the world's 2 biggest authoritarian powers can quite possibly stay on in the job until the day of their death. At first, as dictators from Julius Caesar to, Kim Jong-un have found, they can really get things done exactly the way they want. But after a bit, the attraction fades. People get bored with the same old figures, and the president for life starts to run out of ideas. Then they get old and ill, and people start being embarrassed by their country's leader. Remember that previous president for life in Russia, Leonid Brezhnev. In 1978, I watched him at a state banquet in Vienna, actually being helped to lift his glass to his lips. Not like Colonel Gaddafi in Libya, whose crimes become so well known, people can't wait to overthrow them. I'm not saying Putin or Xi Jinping will be anything remotely like that. But if history tells us anything, it's that governments are like manure heaps. They need turning over from time to time just to get a bit of air into them. Sure, there have been cases where presidents for life have ended their days contented and honoured, but I could name you plenty who had to be given the push, mostly by angry crowds pouring out into the streets. Well, that's it from me. Thank you for watching.